On this episode of the Real Life Caddy podcast, there's something a little different from normal. On this episode, I have two great interviews with two guys doing fantastic things within golf, but in two completely different areas. In the first interview, I speak with Shawn McCannon, who's the founder and CEO of UpGlove. UpGlove is a subscription-based golf company, and certainly the highest quality glove that I've personally ever used. Shawn discusses the genesis of the idea, and talks about how the company's grown and what the future holds. In the second interview, I speak with Brock Gillespie, who runs the National Putting Tour. Yes, you heard that correctly, there is a putting tour, and it's no joke. However, it also makes sense, as there's a tour for long drive, so why not putting? His knowledge and passion for the sport is tangible, and I was fascinated to hear more. Both of these men are passionate and very knowledgeable about their products, and I know that you'll share in their enthusiasm and contribution for what they are doing to make golf a better game. Stick around till the end of each interview, because Shawn has a great glove discount for our listeners, and Brock shares details about how you can have a bash at competing in an NPT event yourself. As always, many thanks for listening. Please support us by following us on the socials, sending us an email or text, and visit our website where you can buy us a beer if you wish to do so. In the meantime though, I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Shawn McCannon of UpGlove to the Real Life Caddy podcast. Shawn, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Gordon. Happy to be here.
So the listeners know, I've been speaking to Shawn for a good couple of years actually, and we discussed doing this quite some time ago. So I'm really glad that we finally got around to introducing you to our listeners and talking a lot more about sort of the history of yourself in golf, and then how you got involved in creating what I think is the best golf club I've ever worn. So please, Shawn, take it away. Tell us who you are, where you're based, how you got involved in golf.
Yeah, Shawn McCannon. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I did my undergrad at Bowling Green State University, and that's kind of where I got involved in golf. I played a lot of golf when I was in college, and then to be honest with you, I moved down to Tampa, Florida, and I didn't really play that much. And then, I worked in the investment field like my whole career. So I decided to join him, and, I re-caught the bug, and, I played a ton of golf. Essentially how UpGlove got started, it was really kind of to solve my own problem. I would always forget to have a glove, and then I would get, just robbed at the pro shop. So I ended up paying $24 for Titleist Permasoft is the glove that I wore. Mm-hmm. So I'd always shell out $24 at the pro shop. So really, initially, the thought of starting a glove company wasn't even on my mind. What I started doing is I started researching where all these manufacturers were, contacting them, and I just wanted to order like 100 gloves.
Could I take you back and ask you what kind of golfer you are?
What kind of golfer?
Yeah, are you any good?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can play. I would say I haven't kept my handicap as of late, but the lowest I got down to was a 2.
And are you a right-handed, left-hand golfer?
Yeah, right-handed.
You wear one glove or two gloves?
Just one glove.
Where was the wear and tear that you were finding in the glove?
I think for me, I would get it a lot kind of, in the heel pad. That was pretty much the main spot that I would wear, gloves at.
So the heel pad, is that where your wrist joins your palm, where the pinky is?
Yeah, where the pinky is, straight down where, that's sitting on top of the grip.
Okay, gotcha.
Essentially, I didn't feel like shelling out. I mean, the Permasoft's a great glove. I just didn't feel like shelling out, $25 every time I went to play golf.
Was it one glove per round, basically, or how many rounds of golf were you getting?
Oh, no. I mean, they would last me. They would last me quite a bit. It was good quality, Titleist. That's kind of what you expect from them. But I started trying other gloves, cheaper gloves, and the feel was completely different. And down here in Tampa, you sweat a lot because it's so hot out. Like after like one round of usage with one of the cheaper gloves, that thing's like a brick.
Yes.
The next time you go play, because it's just cheaper leather.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I went down this rabbit hole and started talking to all these manufacturers, and then before you know it, I was building a prototype. So I actually built the prototype for UpGlove. I had like 6 manufacturers that we were, considering. Ultimately, we landed on one, and it was, it was a really good glove. And I was like, you know what? Let's do this. And at the time, Gordon, like when we first started out, we were strictly just a subscription.
Okay.
And at the time, there was no dedicated glove companies that had a subscription model. So as far as I know, we were the first glove company ever to have like a subscription, like a dedicated subscription. But we made it like, we don't even call it a subscription anymore. We kind of call it more of a on-demand program because you can pause whenever you want. We have tons of different options as far as we have monthly, bi-monthly, every 3 months, every 4 months, and then you can pause whenever you like.
How long did it take you to go through that process of initial idea to having the prototype?
Probably, I would say from researching manufacturers, going back and forth because you're giving them feedback on the first iteration and all of that. That was probably close to a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a lot of time involved in that. And then you get the glove back after they make an iteration. You make some improvements here and there, and then there's a lot of back and forth going on until you kind of finalize like the product, the end product. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. How did you come up with the name UpGlove?
I think the way that I came up with it is I was researching names that had glove in it. And then UpGlove was like one of the fewest letters for a domain name. And then, when I saw UpGlove, I was kind of like, you know what, this is just like, I'm upping the competition. So it just kind of just stuck with me. It was short. For the logo and the design, we had all these designs. I think we used, I think they were called 99 designs, I think is what they are. Basically, you post a job on there, and then you have all these different graphic designers develop like the logos and everything like that, and then you kind of choose, which one you want to work with. And once that came back and I really liked the logo, I was like, all right, this is the brand. This is definitely the brand.
And how would you have started the business then? Was it just in Florida? Was it friends? Was it a couple of clubs, or did you go about online?
Pretty much we did it all online. We started building, our email list and just getting interest in the gloves. And I mean, we included everyone who was following us at that time. I mean, even to the initial design of the website, we got feedback from all of them. So we kind of built like this anticipation, and people who they were part of the whole process and were coming along for the journey. So once we went live, we had, quite a few people who were all, ready to jump in.
Interesting. How many guys are involved in the business?
So there's 4 people that work for UpGlove.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a small company, but we streamline everything. We're pretty efficient. I mean, I handle pretty much all the marketing, and I have a support person. I have a dedicated shipping person, and then I have one other person who kind of helps out in between, where they'll do either support or they'll do shipping as needed.
And have they been with you since the start, or was it just you?
No, it was just me and one other person to start, and then we brought a couple more on as we grew.
Uh-huh. Because I know what it's like running an online store. It's people are talking to you as if you're customer service, and it happens to be your customer service. You're also manufacturing, you're sourcing the material, and you're also shipping it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wear a lot of hats, and I help out in all those places when needed.
The best thing about that, Shawn, is no one can ever pull the wool over your eyes. You know every part of the business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, even even in my investment career, I was always, very close. That's why my teams did so well, is because I wasn't afraid to roll up my sleeves and kind of get on the ground and see what's happening. And, so being, this is my baby. So, I'm highly involved in everything, but, we have great people working for us. Our support is second to none.
Mm-hmm.
When you reach out to UpGlove, you're going to get a response typically within a few hours. And even though I tell my dedicated support person not to work on the weekends, they will still work on the weekends and answer people. But I always tell people, hey, you'll get a response always within 24 hours, usually within a couple hours. I always tell them, but not on the weekends. But so this is going to be our 7th year. Since that time, we've had 5 tickets that were over 24 hours. And I would say 3 of those is because they hit the spam box and we didn't see them.
Yeah. Oh, that's that was going to be my next question. 7 years then in the making.
Yep. So this will be our 7th year in shipping. So the business was around a little bit before that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 7 years and actually shipping out gloves.
Now, you said it's a subscription-based product, so people can. What's your typical customer?
We were just a subscription for a while.
Okay.
And like I said, they're not tied into anything. They have full control of their shipments. They can start and stop at any time, cancel at any time. It's extremely flexible. It's as flexible as you can get. But we do offer one-time purchases now.
Okay.
So yeah, people can do one-time purchases. We offer free shipping on the 15th of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So one cool thing that we do that I don't think I've ever seen anyone online do is we delay payments until shipping. So if someone wants to buy a glove and they want free shipping, we don't charge you until we're basically packing up your shipment.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like a delayed payment. So basically it was like one of those things where, like, no matter when you sign up, your payment date's always going to be close to your shipping date.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want your glove right away, you just pay $4.99, which is, to be honest with you, that's less than what I pay when you factor in, the shipping costs with USPS and then me paying people to ship it out. That's actually less than what I have to pay to get it shipped out. But because we can scale it on the 15th, because we have so many shipments going out on the 15th, I don't even charge for shipping if they can wait till the 15th.
Gotcha. And do you find a lot of people who buy one individual glove end up buying into the subscription?
Yeah, by far, the subscription model, the pricing's better. And because people have full control, like I said, it's more kind of like an on-demand thing.
Yeah.
Because they have full control over it, almost everyone chooses that option. And then usually what we see is when people buy one glove, it's usually like a lot of members are buying it for someone else.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or like you said, there are some people who will test this out and they'll order the one glove. And then they'll hop on the subscription later.
Are you all around the world, or are you just in the US or North America?
Yeah, just in the States, and then some of the territories. We have a few people like in Puerto Rico who get gloves from us.
So what about people in Australia, the UK, New Zealand, Spain? Is that something you'll look at doing in the future? Yeah,
I think the issue is the shipping cost.
Okay.
Like when you start factoring in, we get people all the time from, across the pond or in Canada. We get a lot of people who email us and ask about that. The issue is the shipping is just so high. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even make sense for them to do that. And then, if they get the wrong size, what are they going to do? Ship it back for $20 and then $20 back, So I think if we ever did something like that, if we ever went that route, it would be probably something, through like Amazon or something like that, where we would have a distributor.
Gotcha.
To kind of reach those other destinations.
Hopefully that happens then. What states in America are your hotspots? Where do you sell, or where you have most of your customers?
Ooh, That's a good question.
I'm full of good questions.
I guess I would say Midwest is definitely a big one. California is a big one. And then I would say kind of like the East Coast border is also a big one. So, I mean, they're all over, man. I mean, to be honest with you, there's definitely, we're reaching tons of states. We have, quite a few people in Hawaii too.
Okay.
All over, man.
I know that you want to offer the listeners a discount code, but before we finish on that, can you tell us what the future holds, say the next 5 years, what your plans are?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's I guess probably two major things. I think one is currently we do not have a women's line or a junior line. So we definitely want to do that. We just haven't seen enough traction as far as like requests and things like that. But we definitely want to do better outreach for that. And then the next would be, I think, getting into some potential distributors. So some stores. So there's tons of that's involved in there as far as like doing all the electronic stuff in order to facilitate the orders. And this is all stuff, I mean, we started talking to a few vendors about this as far as how all that works. But I think those are probably the two biggest things that I foresee in the future is expanding our line and then expanding our reach through certain distributors.
Mm-hmm. I have to personally say what you'd mentioned, you've been sending me gloves for a couple of years now. I would rip through your standard gloves. My friend who carries on tour, he gave me some Callaway gloves about 18 months ago, and I was on the range and I hit 7 balls, and where you were saying the sort of back right of the palm just tore in pieces. And I think I'm 25 to 30 rounds with an UpGlove, and I put a hole in a thumb once, but again that was after a full season because I wanted to put it to the test. And I think, do you remember I sent you a message and said the quality of the product is too good?
Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that.
I love the product. It looks great. You have kind of a mesh on the top, don't you? Is that for, obviously to aerate the hand?
Yeah, a few things on that. One is we use the same makers that some of these big brands use. Mm-hmm. So our gloves are getting made by major brands that everyone would recognize. Our glove is getting made by them. So you're not sacrificing any quality there. And then our glove is a little bit different. So on the back it is mesh. And then beneath the mesh, there's actually like a moisture wicking fabric. So it's for comfort because it's super soft, but also it helps reduce sweat. Yeah. So I would say our gloves reduce sweat probably close to 40%, just because of the breathability and then the moisture wicking that goes along with that. And then the palm is pure, soft, premium Cabretta leather that you're going to find that the best brands use, because we're getting it from those same people who are making those gloves.
The same leather that's in the upholstery in Ferraris. That's how I'd describe it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best they got. So that's what we told. So there's no sacrifice on that. That's why the glove can last as long as it does, and that's why it's soft and you can get a really good grip, because the natural oil in the higher premium Cabretta leather is really what helps it with to give you that great grip.
Fantastic. Well, I think the listeners should at least have a look and try out even just a one individual and see if the subscription's for you. Is there something you can offer the listeners of the Real Life Caddy podcast as an incentive?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, why don't we give everyone 20% off? 20%
off now. How can they achieve that goal?
So we'll use, if it's good with you, we'll use Glorified as the promo code.
Perfect.
And all they have to do is go to UpGlove.com, and then during the checkout, use Glorified, and then they'll get 20% off their first shipment.
That's fantastic. So UpGlove.com. Can they find you in the socials?
Oh yeah. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, so they can definitely find us at those places as well.
Just look for UpGlove, UpGolf, UpGlove, and as I say, check out UpGlove.com. If you buy anything, put in the discount code GLORIFIED for 20% off. Well, listen, thank you very much for your time, Shawn.
I really appreciate it, Gordon. Thanks for having me on.
I wish you all the best with the UpGlove product going forward, and I hope you are getting enough time to play golf.
Yep. Yeah. Right now, I'm not getting as much. I need to make some more time for it, but yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing some more here over the summer.
Wonderful. Well, many thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks, Gordon.
As many of you know, our podcast is sponsored by the Big Game Golf app. However, what many of you won't know is there's also a Big Game Golf Founders Club. Anyone can become a member of the Founders Club, and the benefits are numerous. You'll get early access to new game releases, receive special promotions from Big Game Golf partners, and you'll receive a lifetime Big Game Golf membership, which also includes 3 one-year premium memberships for 3 of your golfing buddies. As a Founders Club member, you'll also have access to the Big Game Golf team to share comments, feedback, and suggestions. To find out more, visit biggamegolf.com and click on the Founders Club tab. And if you do join the club, don't forget to enter the promo code GD1 to receive some Big Game Golf swag. I'm now joined by a man called Brock Gillespie, and he is in charge of the NPT. Brock, welcome to the Real Life Caddy podcast. Please explain to the listeners what the NPT is, please.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Gordon. So the National Putting Tour is a putting tour that we throw putting competitions all over the country. It's not just for professional putters. Some of the putting tours out there, they cater more towards like a professional putters vibe. Now, I do have a professional division that has the best putters in the country, but I also have an amateur flight. So we try to include everybody. And I also have, at some of the events, I have a beginner division. So at a National Putting Tour event, there's something in it for everyone. And yeah, I throw these putting competitions all over the country. I don't do too many putting competitions. In fact, I haven't done any putting competitions at what you would call like your local mini putt course that's got like windmills and stuff like that. I try to, the venues that I do these tournaments at, they're more, it's a different type of putting situation. I throw a lot of my tournaments at regular practice putting greens that you'd see like out in front of the pro shop at your local municipal course. And then I also throw tournaments at Pop Stroke. I don't know if you've heard about Pop Stroke, the Tiger Woods owned entity. They had an entity called the Pop Stroke Tour Series last year that went out of business, and I've kind of inherited their tour. So I throw a number of tournaments at Pop Stroke locations, and then I also throw tournaments at these really cool putting courses that are built by a company called Putt Tech.
Okay. And
you've probably seen these putting courses out there. There's a lot of them over in Europe where they call it, sometimes they'll call it adventure golf. If you saw an overhead view of it, you could think that it's like a regular golf course, but it's all turf. And they have like, turf sand traps and maybe turf water. And so, that's the gist of what I'm doing here. And I'd like to say, I do a lot of stuff on YouTube with these recap videos that I do for these putting tournaments. And I claim that I'm the most watched putting tour out there, which I don't know how anyone could argue with that at this point. I've done a lot of YouTube videos, and so that's the gist of it.
I think it's worth noting how it was probably a couple of years ago since you contacted me, and at the time, I don't know when it was, maybe the winter, we didn't have time to talk about it. I was going through emails, and I looked at it again. I never delete. If people contact me, I never delete it. I always go through it, and because I think this is super interesting. There's something you said about professional putters, like how good are these people? I didn't know this was a thing. I've been in golf all my life, and I've never heard of a putting tour, and I've never heard of professional putters. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so there's a big group of guys that would call themselves professional putters.
Like long drive. A bit like long drive.
Yeah. I think that's a good analogy. I think it's similar to that. Unfortunately, there's not as much money in professional putting as there is in professional long drive. Like, those guys are making some pretty good dough out there. The payouts at our tournaments are good, but they're nothing like that. But yeah, there's a big group of professional putters out there. It started back in the late 70s and early 80s. There's an entity called the PPA, Professional Putters Association, that were throwing tournaments at these venues called putt-putt. And a lot of people will call just miniature golf outright. They'll call it putt-putt.
Right.
That name actually comes from a facility that's called putt-putt. It's a chain of mini putt courses. And in the late 1970s and early 1980s, they actually had these like very lucrative putting contests that were actually on, I think it was either CBS or ABC Saturday or Sunday morning. It was a televised putting contest, and you can look this stuff up on YouTube and see some of these guys do these putting contests on TV. Well, the ratings went down, and eventually the networks gave up on professional putting. Those putt-putt tournaments through the PPA still went, and they still kept going. And the PPA is still alive and well. They're mostly on the East Coast, but they do professional putting contests. So it's been around a long time. And then it kind of just flatlined and just stayed sort of under everyone's radar. And then in 2017, there was an entity that came out called the Major Series of Putting, the MSOP. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or not, but it was a very big thing where it was a series of putting contests. The guy that owned it, his name is Guy Laliberté, and he owns Cirque du Soleil. He's from Quebec, Canada.
Right.
And Quebec, Canada, they love professional putting up there. And they started this professional putting tour, and they built this big, huge putting stadium behind Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. And in 2017, they threw this huge putting contest at this, what we call the MSOP putting stadium. And you can do a Google image search on that. This thing was absolutely phenomenal. And they had tournaments in, about 15 major cities across the US and Canada. And that's how I got into it. I was a competitor, and I finished top 3 in San Diego 2 years in a row. And I made it into this putting stadium contest. And that's how I fell in love with competitive putting. The MSOP went out of business due to COVID and because they lost over $3 million, and the Guy Laliberté he didn't want to write checks anymore.
Yeah.
The MSOP may come back someday, from what I hear, but for now it's on hiatus, and it's been on a hiatus now for 5 years. But they sort of went out of business, and on the West Coast there was no putting competitions. I was doing this little thing called the San Diego Putters League. And I decided to kind of fill in the vacuum that was left by the MSOP. And I started the National Putting Tour. All the players that did the MSOP kind of heard about what I was doing. They started coming to my contests. And then, we're in our 5th season now, and we've grown every year. And so that's sort of the evolution of things and how we've kind of gotten to where we are at now.
Wow.
There's also another entity called the U.S. Pro Mini Golf Association that's pretty popular, and there's some other leagues that have sprouted up. The World Putting Tour is at a place called Putting World in Scottsdale, Arizona. They're doing some of the more lucrative putting tournaments. They just had a tournament a couple months ago where it was $100,000 purse, but they have since kind of sort of went out of business in a way where they've stopped infusing money into their putting contests. They're still doing them, but they've kind of taken a little bit of a backtrack. But the WPT, there's also an entity called the World Putting League that does contests on the East Coast where you can bet on these professional putters on DraftKings and Betfred and some of these entities. So a lot of different entities have sprouted up in the last handful of years. I feel like I've kind of outlasted those entities, and because I'm truly a national putting tour, I do tournaments all over the country.
How many events do you do a year?
Anywhere from about 10 to 14. I think this year I'm on track for 12 or 13 events. I average about one a month.
Yeah.
And I live in San Diego, so I do tournaments in LA, San Diego, Vegas, Phoenix. But I've also been doing some tournaments back east now. I have family that lives in Georgia. I did some tournaments out near the Atlanta area, and then I'm also doing tournaments in Florida at these Pop Stroke locations. And I have a big tournament coming up on August 4th in Sarasota, Florida at PopStroke.
How do you go about organizing this? This is fascinating to me.
Sure. So, and when you say organizing, are you talking about like the buy-ins and divisions and stuff like that?
Yeah, like how did you start? Do you have a mailing list? How many guys take part in it? What's the entry fee? How do you find the location you want to do at? Is it 12 months in advance you plan this out? How does it work?
Yeah, good question. So if you go to nationalputtingtour.com, there's an upcoming events page, and you can see the tournaments that are coming up. Because we do these tournaments, a lot of them on natural grass putting greens, it's hard for me to schedule stuff too far in advance because putting greens can go bad. Yeah. So as far as scheduling goes, usually I'm scheduling stuff maybe like 2 or 3 months out. So I don't schedule the whole year at the beginning of the year. It's always about 2 to 3 months out, and I usually have anywhere from about 3 to 6 events in my upcoming events page. So they're scheduled, 2 to 3 months out to try to give people enough time to book their travel and so forth. And then the divisions, it varies depending on what I'm doing and what venue I'm doing it at and what city I'm doing them in. Some of my cities have more professional putters than amateurs. Some of my cities have more amateur putters than professionals. Some of the PopStroke stuff that I'm doing, the divisions are a little bit different because of just the clientele there. So it kind of varies as far as buy-ins. But the overall gist of it is, at most of my tournaments, there's a minimum entry of just $20 for the amateur or the pro division. So it's very affordable. $20, that gets you into a division where you can win prizes if you finish in the top 3. And then for both the amateur and professional division, I have add-ons. I call them levels. They're basically just like side pots. For instance, for my amateur flight, it's a $20 minimum, and then the next add-on is $30, and all that money goes back to the players. We pay the top 33% of the players roughly. Mm-hmm. And then my professional division, the minimum level is $20. That gets you into the top 3 prizes thing. And then level 2 is $60, and level 3 is $120. To do level 3, you have to do level 2, and to do level 2, you have to do level 1. So the gist of it is, with most of my putting contests for the professional division, you're looking at around a couple $100 buy-in, and first place is around $800 to $1,000.
Good.
We usually get anywhere from about 15 to 50 players at these events, depending on the city and just the turnout and so forth. I did a tournament in Orlando, Florida early in the year. We had 56 players.
Yeah.
That's usually on the high end of player count. And it's, when it comes to like regular golf, it doesn't sound like a lot of players, but I'll tell you, you get 56 guys out on an 18-hole putting course, and it's crowded. It can get pretty busy.
18 holes, stroke play, obviously. And what's the kind of length of the course? So that's another good question. So this also depends on the venue. So the PopStroke stuff that I do, it's an 18-hole course, and we usually play it 3 times, so 54 holes. Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of these tournaments I'm doing on regular practice putting greens that like sit out in front of the pro shop. And for those venues, most of the time we only do a 9-hole course that we play either 4 or 5 times.
Right.
I've even done tournaments where we've just had like a 6 or 7-hole course that we play maybe 6 times. So it varies depending on the size of the green, depending on the venue, depending on where we're doing it, what venue we're doing it at, and so there's a lot of variance with the amount of holes and how long the tournament is, and then also the length of the holes varies depending on the venue. I do a tournament out at a Nagic Golf Club in Chula Vista, California, and they have a really long, skinny practice putting green that's in pristine condition, and we'll do a par 3 where the putt is 100 feet long.
Yes.
So it kind of just depends on the venue, what they have to offer, and I try to make the courses. I try to be very creative with the course creation. A lot of times when you're playing a putting tournament on a regular practice putting green, a guy goes out there, puts a few tees down, sits in a lawn chair and has a clipboard, and there's not really much going on.
Yeah.
I do quite a bit to make these courses cool and fun. I got all kinds of signage. I do, a lot of different things with the holes. Sometimes I'll have, and this is on a regular grass putting green, sometimes I'll have like a bounce hole where they bounce it like off a piece of wood.
Gotcha.
Or I do once in a while, I have this little jump that I bring out, and once in a while we'll break out like a little jump hole where you kind of jump the ball off of a little ramp. We don't try to get too far into like the mini golf realm where you got like the volcano hole or the windmill hole or anything like that. But I do a little bit to spice up the courses just to kind of make it fun and to make the player feel like they're doing something that's unique and not boring.
How good are these guys compared to tour professionals? Like, how good is their putting?
Well, I'll give you an example. PopStroke did a big tournament last year. They call it their PopStroke Tour Championship. Rumor has it that they're going to be bringing that back once a year, but as of right now, they've sort of went out of business to a certain degree. Obviously, not the facilities. The facilities are making all kinds of money, but the putting tournaments, they haven't. They might not do anything. But anyway, about 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, they did a big, huge championship down in Sarasota, Florida. And the two guys that won the tournament, their names are Jacob Stass and Chris Johnson. They're two of the most well-known competitive putters on the planet. And they faced off against Ricky Fowler and Paula Creamer in a $25,000 winner-take-all match. And Jacob Stass and Chris Johnson beat Ricky Fowler and Paula Creamer by 4 strokes. Now, in all fairness, Ricky and Paula were only there a few hours before the event, and they didn't get a whole lot of practice on the course. So it's a little bit misleading. I can tell you that the top competitive putters are as good as the top putters that are on tour. Mm-hmm. And one of the pieces of evidence that really makes that legitimate. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Taylor Montgomery.
Yeah.
He's on the okay.
100%.
So I don't know. Earlier in the conversation, I told you about this putting stadium tournament that took place in 2019, the MSOP Championship.
Yes.
Well, Taylor Montgomery won that championship by 1 stroke against the guy Chris Johnson, who I told you about that just beat Ricky Fowler.
Okay.
Well, Taylor Montgomery now is considered the best putter on the PGA Tour.
Interesting.
So and then also, I don't know if you're familiar with, I'm going to mess up his name, but it's something like Matsuyama.
Yeah.
Him and Taylor Montgomery were a team, and in 2018, I believe, they won the MSOP team title, and now both those guys are on the PGA Tour, and Taylor Montgomery is considered statistically the best putter on the PGA Tour.
Wow.
So your top guys in competitive putting are as good as your top PGA pros. But obviously, if the PGA pros were to come out and play these contests, of course they'd dominate if they really worked at it and practiced the courses and stuff like that. But your top competitive putters, there's about maybe 10 guys that are considered sort of like your top tier, A-list competitive putters. I feel like they're as good as the putters on the PGA Tour.
Specialized putters, or do they just use normal equipment?
So it varies. And it's very reminiscent of, and this is just my own personal opinion, but I think it holds true. If you look at the golf swings of your top golfers in the world, they're all very different and kind of unorthodox, right? John Rahm only takes to about 9.30, and he's got this kind of laid off thing that he does. Dustin Johnson is super bowed at the top. Guys like Ryan Moore and some of these guys are bringing it way steep and then they're dropping it in the slot, right? You see the same kind of thing with competitive putters. It's not just like your standard, Adam Scott, just perfectly fundamentally sound putting stroke. And I bring up Adam Scott because I'm actually talking about his full swing, maybe not his putter, but maybe let's bring up Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, just a conventional putting stroke, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these guys are doing a lot of different things. They're slicing the ball. They're coming outside in. They're using some sort of orthodox putter. There's a lot of really high-end competitive putters that are still using like the old Ping bullseye putters. And so, it's a wide variety of different types of putters, different types of styles. But these guys have practiced their stroke for decades, some of these guys. And regardless of it being fundamentally sound or not, it works for them, and they would never want to change it because they've been working on that same stroke for 30 years. So it's interesting what you see out there. It's not like every guy is using a Scotty Cameron putter. Some of these guys are using old school putters, big, huge mallet putters, that aren't very popular. I know that Lab Golf has really made a pretty big imprint on a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys are using the Lab putter, which, according to statistics, is supposed to be one of the better putters out there. So, yeah, you get a wide diverse of ages. A lot of these competitive putters are old guys.
Yeah.
Some are young guys. The type of putters they use really varies. The type of putting strokes that they have really varies. There's a guy by the name of Matt Mayle, who's the 2021 U.S. Pro Mini Golf Association champion. He uses a tall putter and comes completely outside in, but he's one of the best putters in the country. So yeah, it's a really diverse. It's diverse in many ways.
Can anyone, so we got a lot of listeners all over the country, can anyone just turn up and play in one of your events?
Anybody can turn up. I do sell a membership.
Okay.
It's $49 that gets you, access to some videos that aren't on YouTube, and that gets you like a digital player's card and some goodies. But to play in my putting tournaments, I do not require you to be a member. If you go on the upcoming events page on nationalputtingtour.com and you see an event, you can sign up there. I open up signups usually about a month and a half, 2 months before the event, and you can just sign up there without paying any money. You just fill out a little contact form, you sign up. And then even if you didn't sign up, you could just show up the day of and just say, hey, I want to play, and we'll get you right in. And, we'll usually try to put you in a division that fits for you. I'll oftentimes ask someone what their regular golf handicap is, and that'll kind of let me know whether or not they should be like in the amateur, pro, or beginning division.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can just walk right up and play in any of these events.
Because I'm thinking, you might have a group of lads that are in Sarasota one weekend, and they go, "What we're going to do tomorrow afternoon?" It might be the type of thing that would fit for them. And like, how long are we talking? Is it a 1-day event? Does it start at 2, finish at 6? How does it work?
Yes, almost every tournament that I've ever thrown is 1 day. We did one in San Diego. There was a multiple day event through this charity organization called the Randy Jones Foundation. That was kind of an anomaly, but almost every single one of my events is a 1-day event, so you don't have to book multiple days of travel. The time of the event varies on the venue, whether or not we're in winter or summertime. If we're in wintertime, the events are usually shorter because the sun goes down at 5 o'clock. So it just depends. But yeah, the average time for one of these tournaments is usually about 3 or 4 hours.
And I would imagine you're encouraging people to come and watch?
Yeah. We have spectators sometimes. A lot of people bring their families to come spectate. So, a guy will come travel the event. He brings the wife, he brings the kid. They sit on the sidelines and watch. And so, yeah, there are spectators. I wouldn't say there's a ton of spectators that come out to these events. But yeah, we definitely love it when people want to come out and watch, and we definitely advocate that.
Are you always looking for sponsorship for events? Is that something that people could get in contact with you about?
Most definitely, yeah. If you go to nationalputtingtour.com, there's a tab in the navigation bar that says sponsor the NPT. We do a very affordable event-to-event sponsorship where someone can sponsor the event. And we actually call the event their business name. So
Lovely.
We have a guy out in San Diego that sponsors an event every year. He runs an internet marketing company called Top IMR. So we do the Top IMR Putting Championship. I just did one out in Vegas with a YouTuber group of guys called the Golf Fathers.
Right.
These guys do really funny, kind of viral YouTube golf videos. And they sponsored my event out in Vegas, and we called it the Golf Fathers Putting Shootout. So yeah, we do have sponsors, and of course, we always love it when someone wants to come sponsor one of our events and help out the tour.
Fantastic. And like you said, nationalputtingtour.com, can people find you on social media?
You can, yeah. I do have a Facebook page, but it's not really that popular. Most of the people that are seeing me on social media are either going to the YouTube page that I have, which is under my name, Brock Gillespie. And you can also just search National Putting Tour on YouTube, and you'll see all my videos there. I also do have an Instagram page. The handle for that is @National Putting Tour altogether. And so, yeah, my Instagram and my YouTube page is where most of the people find me on social media. And then I also want to tell your viewers that we have something very exciting that's happening. I don't have an exact date on it, but sometime in early August, our 2023 final that we did at Putting World is going to be on ESPN2, and it's going to be part of the ESPN 8 The Ocho Show. And I don't know if you've heard of this show, but it's a 48-hour block on ESPN2 in the first week of August, where they showcase a lot of like different sports leagues out there.
Yeah.
And I am part of that show this year. We got a half-hour show that's going to be on ESPN2 in early August. So, definitely want to tell your viewers to look out for that. We don't have an exact time and date on that yet, but if you keep on, searching things in late July, you'll eventually, I'm going to be doing a bunch of promotion for it all over the internet. So if you just Google that in late July, you'll be able to find that time. And yeah, we're very excited about that. I'm actually cutting the show myself. I've become sort of a video editor over the years by doing all these recap videos. And so, yeah, I'm cutting the show myself, and it's coming out absolutely phenomenal. The guys at ESPN are really liking it, and they're actually thinking about bringing me back for another year because the show's so good.
Brock, many thanks for your time, and I'm sure the listeners, some people will get involved in some way. They'll, either follow you, come along to an event, or maybe even sponsor it. So many thanks for your help. Good luck with the rest of the season. And I look forward to taking part in one of your events in the not-too-distant future.
Well, I appreciate it. And, check out nationalputtingtour.com. We got a division for everybody. Come on out. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thank you, Brock.
All right. Thank you.